Hello, I'm Death's Arrow, and welcome to episode 15 of WoT I'm Thinking. In this episode, I will look at the American T30 and how this heavy tank has morphed from being the N-tier American heavy tank into a Tier 9 tank destroyer. From a historical perspective, the T30 was part of a series of heavy tank prototypes developed during the later stages of World War II in response to the appearance of more heavily armed and armored German tanks. 4 pilots were recommended for development and manufacture in September of 1944, 2 of which were T29 prototypes to be armed with 105mm gun T5E1. The other 2 were T30 prototypes to be armed with the 155mm gun T7. Design of the T30 prototypes were started around April of 1945, which was the end of the war in Europe. Even with the war over, the T30 prototype development continued. 2 prototype T30s were delivered to the Aberdeen Proving Grounds in 1948, the first in April and the second in July. While originally the T30 was supposed to have the same powertrain as the T29, the T30 specifications were changed in late 1945 to include a more powerful Continental V12 engine with 810 horsepower. The T30's hull was essentially the same as the T29, except for the changes to the engine compartment to accommodate the Continental V12. The turrets were also similar with the exception of the main gun, with the 155mm in the T30. Ammunition was a 2-piece affair, consisting of a 40-pound propellant charge and a 95-pound high-explosive shell, bringing the total shell weight to 135 pounds. Due to the weight of the combined shell, along with the limited space inside the turret, the firing rate was approximately 2 shells per minute. In July of 1947, one of the T30 prototypes was fitted with an experimental automatic loader. While the T30 never made it past the prototype stage, the information on the heavy tank development gained through the T30 along with the T29, T32, and T34 all provided valuable information for future American heavy tank design. The Continental engine testing in the T30 ended up being used in the upgraded M26 Pershing, along with the M46, M47, and M48 patents. The diesel version of the engine became the power plant for the M60. In World of Tanks, the T30 is one of the most nerfed tanks in the game. It was originally conceived as the N-tier American heavy tank during closed beta. When first introduced, it was an above-average heavy and an effective Clan Wars contributor. After several nerfs to the main gun's accuracy, the T30 fell to the back of the pack. The tank was continuously adjusted until the introduction of the T110E5 in the 7.2 patch. The T30 was then changed to a Tier 9 tank destroyer and further adjusted. The T30 has been adjusted several more times since its classification change. In its current incarnation, the T30 still plays similarly to how it played as a heavy tank, which has a lot to do with the T30 having a turret rather than a fixed casemate. Since the T30 is based on the T29, the tank plays in a similar manner, although the current incarnation of the T34 is a bit closer in functionality, particularly in mobility and aim time. The strongest armor on the T30 is the front of the turret. Combined with good gun depression, which by the way is a common trait on most American tanks, hull-down tactics should be used as often as possible. For those unfamiliar with the term hull-down, it means that the hull of the tank is behind cover while the turret is exposed. There are several ways to accomplish this through the use of terrain as well as dead tanks. Obviously, not every map is ideal for hull-down tactics, but there are good hull-down locations on every map. Also, it should be noted that sitting for long periods of time in a hull-down spot usually leads to getting artied. The T30 can brawl in a pinch by face-hugging. This involves pushing right up on an enemy tank and forcing them to shoot the tank's turret face. This does leave you exposed to other enemies, so I try to only utilize this tactic when an enemy is isolated. For the most part, wading into a bunch of enemies is a no-no with the T30 due to its slow rate of fire. For equipment on this tank, I recommend a rammer to improve reload times, a gun-laying drive to improve aim time, and binoculars to improve view range when not moving. Binocs are particularly valuable on turreted TDs because they stay active during turret rotation. For crew skills, I recommend camo or repair first depending on your preference, then sixth sense, clutch braking, off-road driving, situational awareness, and safe stowage. Some people also recommend Brothers in Arms. The first replay that we'll be looking at is on Lakeville from November 23rd, 2012. As noted at the top of the loading screen, this is a standard battle. Reviewing tank composition for this battle reveals the following. This is a Tier 10 battle with 6 Tier 10s on my team and 7 on the enemy team. My team has 4 Tier 9s while the enemy's team only has 1. My team has 5 arties while the enemy's team has 4. The enemy's team has 3 lower tiered scouts while my team has none. The enemy team has the advantage based on hardware as they have more Tier 10s along with 3 scouts. I don't recognize anyone in this battle. As we get underway here, my early thought would be to cover the middle of the map. While I don't always recommend this tactic every time out, as it can fail as often as it succeeds, getting early spots from the center can be a huge advantage, especially with so much big arty on both sides.
Move out!
Well, you can't see the chat. Our T110 is a little upset that 2 tanks are going middle right now. Early tank distribution looks very favorable. We've got 5 tanks headed to town, a medium already on the other side of town, 2 tanks covering the valley. I'm already picking up spots. Now our bat chat is taking those spots. That's the medium that pushed up. I've got really nice flanks here from the group of enemies that are headed towards town. Take my first shot at the E100 and I hit. Back up behind the rock for cover. This is key to utilizing this position. If you're overly exposed, the enemy can easily fire back and knock you around. We've knocked down their arty here in the first volley. 2 mice spotted. Get a flank shot on the mouse. Back into cover again. This gun having such a long reload and aim time, I'm trying to carefully place my shots and my positioning to minimize how long I need to be exposed. Get a flank shot on their T110. Their FV-4202 is trying to sneak back to the middle. Disappears. Pops up again. Get a little break here between the rock and the hill. Hit him only for a track. The enemy is mainly engaged in town here. I'm going to see if I can get some shots into town. Mouse is exposed. I'm trying to line him up, but he's behind a rock. Bounce off his front armor. Back into cover again. Gonna push up the middle here. I don't have any flank shots on the town attackers. It appears based on the mini-map that the valley is not covered at all, as we've got a heavy and a TD in the middle of the valley and the enemy is not holding them back. Only 1 tank spotted, and I believe it's the FV-4202. And I'm pushing up here. The enemy really can't stop me. Currently have a 5 tank lead. The only tank I see spotted near the cap is the 4202. Bounce a shell there. I believe it's from an E100. There's the 4202. Hit him in the front and back up behind cover while I reload. Spot their T92, but he disappears. Object 212 is behind cover. He is not a threat. Our bat chat is moving in on the arty. I get hit in the back. I hit the 4202 again. I'm going to press up into a face hug here. Take a hit from behind from that 2801. 2801 slams to my side and kills himself, and I knock down the 4202. Not going to waste my repair kit here. There's no imminent threats. The valley push is now complete. All remaining enemies are in town except for the T92, which is on the hill to my right. I'm going to push into the cap. Any enemies in town may be thinking that they can turn around and come back, which will expose their backs to my team. I'm just being careful here. I want to expose the T92, but I don't want to give him any angle to fire on me. Capping out the base should bring him out of cover, although our Yag Tiger is going to crawl up his back. Yag Tiger shoots him in the rear. Looks like he's tracked as well. Mouse has joined me on cap. Yag Tiger knocks down the T92. Enemy's down to 3 tanks. Got a big lead here. The batch is already pretty much decided at this point. I move up to the front of the cap to see if I can get any rear shots as we're about to cap them out. And we've capped them out. They knock down the IS-8, which extends the timer a little bit. And they knock down the E-100 for the win. I don't have the after action screens for this battle, but based on some data I pulled out of the replay manager, my performance is as follows. I destroyed 2 tanks, hit 8 of 8 shots for 3,731 points of damage, and earned 71 capture points for an invader medal. Overall, my tactics in this match were fairly aggressive. While there was a lot of big arty in the match, the center road provides decent arty cover, especially early on where arty has to cross an open area to reach safer ground at K8 and 9. I pushed the center road to the middle in order to spot enemies heading for town and be able to put flanking fire on them. Once it was clear the enemy had over-deployed to town, I made an aggressive move for their base. This allowed me to light up their arty and take out the only cap defender. The match was well in hand at this point, as we both capped out their base as well as destroying all their tanks. The second replay I'll be looking at is on Redshire from November 23, 2012. As noted at the top of the loading screen, this is a standard battle. Reviewing tank composition for this battle reveals the following. This is a Tier 10 battle with 5 Tier 10s per side. Both teams also have 3 Tier 9s. My team has 2 Tier 8 arty while the enemy team has a Tier 8 and a Tier 7. My team has 3 Tier 5 scouts while the enemy team only has 2. I recognize members of the PeepCac platoon on my team, mainly from the World of Tanks forums. My early thought here is that because of my tank's gun depression, I can play more of a support role by getting up on the hill at F9. If it turns out that more of the team heads up in that direction and wants to play more of a static camping style, that I can change my tactics as necessary. As I climb up the hill, I've got a T62A, a 2801, and a 1390. They spot a 50-2. Keep an eye on him. If he skirts back out into the open, I'll pop him. 2801 is also pushing in. 50-2 has exposed himself. I'm trying to line him up. Lead him nicely and get the kill. The T62A has moved up to B9, which is a great position to spot any enemies pushing on that flank. We've got a T110E5 spotted. He's way up on the hill over at C5. He disappears before I can line my shot up. Appears he's backed into cover. I'm waving my reticule over him to see if he'll light up so I can shoot him. We've got an E75 at A7. I'm going to climb up the hill higher so I can provide support to the T62A. He's now got a T44. Had a little bit of a turret shot on that T44, but he slips away and disappears. We've lost one of our scouts. Just waving my cursor over around to see if I can light up one of these tanks. D100 pops up, bounce off his turret. I know I need to keep my focus in the valley here. I can't hang the T62A out to dry. He's in that hollow at B9. I'm maintaining my patience here. Looks like the T110E5 is going to join the party. Looking at the mini-map, I like the tank distribution I'm seeing on my team right now. Take another shot at the E100 and bounce again. I need him to expose his hull if I'm actually going to pen him. The turret's a little bit thick for standard rounds. The E100 is pushing in. Finally get a hull shot. Hit him for considerable damage. Looking for my next shot here. Both E100 and E75 are exposed. E100 is the bigger threat. I have a rear shot on the E75 and knock him down. E100 is climbing the hill, he's out in the open. Waiting for my reload. And then knock him down. I'm going to stay up on the hill here as there's still more tanks in the area. No shot at that T-44. It's behind the hill. Appears since my last check of the minimap that our heavies that were over in K1-2 area have been knocked down. That does leave that flank exposed somewhat, although the heavy and medium at G5 are covering that area as well. And I am keeping an eye on both directions at the same time. T62A and T110E5 are pushing in. They spot an enemy T110E5. I really can't support them from here. Got an M46 across on the hill over at C4, but I can't hit him. He's behind cover most likely. T110E5 is behind cover. Can't shoot him either. Looks like Artie just hit him. Take a shot that's a little risky and I miss. And the T62A knocks down the enemy T110. Right now we have a one tank lead. The flank on this side is broken now. I'm moving down to try to see if I can get some shots on these guys on the hill. With no shots imminent, I'm going to push across the middle and support our tanks over at F4. Definitely see based on the minimap that the left side of the map is exposed. That flank is wide open, especially with the Peep-Cac platoon pushing up. So I'm going to move over to the base of the hill and cover that flank. We've lost our T62A that did some really brilliant work on the right flank. The enemy's M46 Pershing is knocked down. We now control the hill at D4. Have a Yag Tiger and a AMX 1390. I'm lining up the 1390. Track him. Now backing down the hill to provide myself some cover. Exposed a little too much of my hull. I got hit there by the 1390 before I got knocked down. We now have a 4-tank lead. The enemy is down to a JPE 100, T110E4, Yag Tiger, and a T92. And they just knocked down the Yag Tiger. I'm pushing up. Coming over this crest here, we spot their T110E4. Top of the crest, and trying to spot the T110E4, but he's behind a rock. Also have the JP100 a little bit to the right. T110E4 starting to expose his hull. Shoot him in the side. And then I back behind cover. He's distracted though with an FV4202 and an AMX 1390 pretty much in his face. We lose our T110E5. And they knock down the T110E4. Pushing in on the JP100. Bounce off JP100. And they knock down the JP100 for the win. Based on data from the replay manager, I destroyed 2 tanks, hit 8 of 9 shots for 2,716 points of damage. Overall, this battle is a good example of how to play the T30 in a supporting role. I utilized my teammates to spot for me and delivered timely rounds to beat down the enemy push on the eastern flank. Once the flank was broken, I recognized that I needed to redeploy to the center of the map to support the next phase of the push. A lot of players will cautiously follow the leading flankers, which wouldn't help the push at the center of the map. One of the keys to victory was supporting the Peepcac platoon, as they were in all likelihood the best players on the team, and the match hinged on their success. Thank you for watching this episode of WoT I'm Thinking. Stay tuned for another episode soon. While I haven't decided on what to cover in the next episode, expect to see either the M46 Patton, the Cromwell, or some other British tanks.